The wall isn't shaking. That's the first thing I notice. The absence of sound I was told to expect, the vibration that should be rattling my teeth loose as 500 kilograms of muscle and fang slam into stone every 3 seconds. The creatures don't stop. They don't circle or probe. They just hurl themselves at the base like living siege weapons. Claws raking trenches through the rock that should be crumbling under the assault. Below me, soldiers grip their spears and stare upward, waiting for cracks that aren't coming. I can hear General Ryun before I see him, his voice tearing across the courtyard like a whip crack. He's shouting my name, my actual name, not hero or summoned one, and it doesn't sound like gratitude. I brace my hands against the parapet. The stone is warm under my palms, solid, unmoving. I didn't do anything dramatic. I touched the wall. I walked the length of it for 3 days, fingers trailing over every join and scar, and I asked the stone to remember what it was before someone stacked it poorly and called it a fortification. That's all. No light show, no system notification. Just me and a material that finally stopped pretending it was weaker than it actually was. Ryun is climbing the ladder now, boots hammering rungs, and his face is the kind of red that comes right before someone makes a decision they can't take back. He reaches the top, chest heaving, and locks eyes with me. What did you do to my wall? I don't have an answer that will make sense to him. I'm not sure I have an answer that makes sense to me. 3 days ago, I was dead. The memory doesn't come gently, it never does. It comes like falling, the same sickening lurch in my stomach, the same snap of understanding that arrives too late to matter. I was 31 years old, I had a desk job that paid well enough and gave me ulcers. I was a structural engineer for a mid-sized construction firm in Seoul, and my entire job was making sure buildings didn't collapse on the people inside them. Load-bearing calculations, material stress tests, site inspections that contractors hated because I wrote everything down and refused to sign off on anything that made my hands shake. I wasn't popular. I was correct. There's a difference, and in my line of work, the difference saves lives. The scaffold wasn't supposed to be there. I'd written that in my report 3 weeks before the fall. Bolts undersized, joints improperly secured, weight capacity 60% of what the supervisor claimed. I'd sent it up the chain. I'd sent it twice. No one responded. No one ever did. The day it happened was a Tuesday. I remember because I had a meeting at 2 and I was running late. The scaffold was blocking the main access to the upper floors, so I took the exterior route, faster, stupider. I stepped onto the platform and felt it shift under my boot. Not much, just enough. I had half a second to recognize the sound. Metal pulling free from metal, the groan of a structure that had already decided to let go. Then I was falling. 11 stories. The wind screamed past my ears and I didn't. I was too busy thinking about the report. The one I'd filed, the one with my name on it, time-stamped, explicit, the one that would be read at my funeral by people who would nod solemnly and do nothing differently. I hit the ground and everything stopped. I didn't see a light. I didn't hear a voice. I just opened my eyes on cold marble, staring up at a vaulted ceiling painted with constellations I didn't recognize. My body didn't hurt. That was the first wrong thing. The second was the man on the throne, King Arlen. That's what the others called him when they knelt. He didn't ask me to kneel. He smiled, like I was a solution to a problem he hadn't bothered explaining yet, and gestured for me to rise. I wasn't wearing my work clothes anymore. I was in linen and leather, clean and simple, and my hands looked the same but felt different, lighter, like I'd shed 20 years of joint pain I didn't know I'd been carrying. The king spoke in a language I shouldn't have understood, but I did. He called me a hero. He said I'd been summoned to save his kingdom from a war they were losing. He said the gods had chosen me. I didn't correct him. I didn't know how. The general standing beside the throne didn't smile. Ryun. His name was Ryun, and he looked at me the way I used to look at contractors who showed up with fake certifications, like I was a problem he'd have to solve later. He asked me what my power was. I didn't know. The king waved a hand and a priest stepped forward, pressing a crystal orb into my palm. It glowed. Faintly, the priest's face fell. F rank, he said quietly, like an apology. Construction affinity. Ryun's expression didn't change, but something behind his eyes did. The king kept smiling. I stood there holding a glowing orb that had just told an entire room I was worthless, and all I could think was that I died for a report no one read. Now I was alive again, in a place that had already decided what I wasn't. 3 days ago, I was dead. Now I'm standing on a wall that shouldn't be holding, staring at a general who wants an explanation I don't have. The wall under my palm feels wrong, not unstable, not cracked, just wrong in a way I can't name yet. I've been staring at it for 6 minutes while Ryun watches from 10 paces back, arms crossed, waiting for me to justify why I told him to pull half the archers off this section. I didn't tell him it was because the mortar's failing. I didn't tell him the load distribution is uneven, or that the next impact from those things below will punch through like wet paper. I just said, trust me, and his silence since then has been louder than any argument. I press both hands flat against the stone. It's cold, rough. The surface texture tells me it's local quarry work, probably second-grade limestone, decent compression strength, but poor tensile resistance. The kind of material you use when you need volume over quality. It's holding now because it hasn't been tested hard enough yet. That changes tonight. I can see the fracture lines spiderwebbing from the base where the creatures have been slamming themselves against it. Hairline now? Fatal soon. I close my eyes and think about load distribution, about how forces move through structures, about the way weight doesn't just press down. It spreads, transfers, seeks the path of least resistance. My mind does what it always did back home. It builds the model. I see the wall not as solid stone, but as a network of compression and tension. Every block bearing weight and passing it along, every joint a potential failure point. I see where the stress is concentrating, where the cracks will widen first, where the whole thing will fold. Something shifts, not in the wall, in me. The air around my hands flickers. Not light, not heat, something else. A translucent interface snaps into existence 6 inches from my face, lines of text scrolling in a language I recognize instantly, even though I've never seen it written before. My breath catches. System activation detected. Analyzing operator intent. Material awakening as a rank F. Class, support. Structural resonance unlocked. The text hangs there, glowing faintly, and beneath it, 3 paths branch out like a flowchart I'm supposed to choose from. Each one has a name. Each one pulses softly, waiting. Path of the foundation. Enhance durability and load capacity of existing structures. Reinforce what already stands. Maximize defensive potential and material lifespan. Passive bonuses to all allied constructs within range. No offensive capability, no mobility enhancement. Path of the architect. Create temporary constructs from ambient material. Walls, barriers, bridges. Fast deployment, limited duration. High versatility in changing terrain. Constructs collapse after energy depletion. Cannot enhance existing structures. No permanence. Path of the vein. Absorb material properties through direct contact. Store analyzed compositions. Reproduce materials at will from stored templates. Requires consumption of source material. Permanent library. No structural reinforcement. No autonomous creation. I stare at them. All 3 feel real. All 3 feel like they solve different problems. The foundation is pure defense. It's what this wall needs right now. The architect is adaptability. It's what a battlefield needs when the terrain shifts faster than strategy can. The vein is knowledge. It's power that grows over time, compounding, building a library of possibilities that no one else could replicate. I think about the report I filed, the one that didn't matter. I think about the scaffold that killed me and the 11 stories of empty air, and the moment I realized I'd done everything right and it hadn't been enough. I think about the king's smile and Ryun's silence and the priest's quiet apology when the orb glowed F rank. I think about what I learned in a life where doing things correctly meant nothing if the people above you didn't care. The most powerful victories are the ones no one has to die for. I reach for the foundation and the interface flares once, bright and final, then dissolves. The wall under my palms doesn't glow. It doesn't hum. There's no light show, no dramatic surge of energy. But I feel it. The stone shifts. Not physically, internally. Like every microscopic fault line, every bubble of trapped air, every weak bond between grains is being found and corrected. The fractures seal. The density increases. The material remembers what it was supposed to be and becomes it. I pull my hands away and the stone looks exactly the same. I pick up the hammer I'd set down earlier, a small mason's tool, iron head, worn handle. I swing it at the spot I just touched. The hammer connects with a crack that echoes too sharp, too high. I pull it back. The head has splintered. The wall doesn't have a mark. Behind me, someone gasps. I turn. There's an old man standing near the supply crates, tools in hand, face pale. He's dressed like a worker. Mason, probably. He's staring at the wall, then at me, then back at the wall. His lips move, but no sound comes out. Then he crosses himself, both hands slow and deliberate, the way you do when you've just seen something that shouldn't exist. Thomas? Ryun says flatly, not a question. The old man nods once, shakily, and takes 3 steps back. Ryun walks forward. He doesn't ask permission. He picks up a different hammer, heavier, steel-headed, the kind you use for demolition, and swings it at the wall with both hands. The impact sounds like a bell. The hammer rebounds hard enough that he has to adjust his grip. The wall is untouched. He looks at me. His expression hasn't changed, but something in his posture has. What did you do? Reinforced it, I say. My voice is steady. My hands aren't. Increased material density, corrected internal fractures. The stone's 42% stronger than it was 30 seconds ago. 42, he repeats, according to the readout. I glance at where the interface was, but it's gone now. The number's still in my head, though, clear and exact. The system measured it. System. Yeah, I don't know how else to explain it. Material awakening. Rank F. Support class. I can reinforce structures. Make them stronger. Make them hold. Ryun stares at the wall for 5 long seconds. Then he looks at Thomas. How long to repair the outer wall's foundation? Thomas blinks. We'd need 3 weeks. Maybe 4. We'd have to pull stone from the old district, remortar the lower sections, shore up the... Not repair, Ryun interrupts. Reinforce. Like this. Thomas's mouth opens, closes. He looks at me like I'm a puzzle he's been handed without the edges. I don't know. I've never seen... Estimate. If he can do that to the whole wall? Thomas's voice cracks. Hours. Maybe a day. Ryun's jaw tightens. He turns back to me, and for the first time since I arrived, I see something in his eyes that isn't dismissal. It's not respect. Not yet. It's calculation. Cold, fast, and ruthless. He's already running the numbers. Already seeing what this means. Start at the southern gate, he says. Work your way north. Don't stop unless you collapse. If you collapse, tell someone before you fall off the wall. He walks away before I can respond. I'm left standing there with a broken hammer in one hand and the faint aftertaste of something sharp in my mouth. It takes me 3 seconds to realize it's blood. I bit my tongue at some point during the activation and didn't notice. I spit once, wipe my mouth, and look down at my palms. They're clean, unmarked. But when I flex my fingers, something in the joints feels different. Tighter, like the bones are denser than they should be. I glance at Thomas. He's still staring. You saw that? I say. He nods. Good, I say. Then you know it's real. He crosses himself again. This time he doesn't stop. The southern gate smells like rust and old blood. I'm standing at the base of the wall where the stone meets packed earth, one hand pressed flat against a section that looks solid but isn't. The mortar's crumbling from the inside out. Water damage, probably. Maybe just age. The creatures haven't hit this section yet, but they will. They always do. Ryun told me to work my way north, but I'm starting here because this is where the wall will fail first. Thomas is 20 feet away, kneeling beside a stack of replacement stones he won't need anymore. He hasn't spoken since we left the other section. He just watches. His eyes haven't left my hands. I close my eyes and reach for the foundation. It comes easier this time. The interface doesn't appear, but I feel the system activate like a switch flipping somewhere behind my sternum. The wall hums under my palm. Not audibly, but I sense it anyway. A vibration that lives in my bones instead of the air. The stone shifts, tightens. The mortar fills its own gaps, particles compressing until the joints are seamless. I pull my hand away and the section gleams faintly in the torchlight. Surface unchanged, but fundamentally different. I move to the next section, then the next. My palms start to ache after the 4th reinforcement, a dull throb that spreads into my wrists. I ignore it. There are 62 meters of wall between here and the North Tower. I've covered 8. Someone shouts from the battlements above. Movement! East side! I don't stop. I press my hands to the next section and push. The foundation activates, and the ache sharpens into something hotter, something that burns up through my forearms and settles in my shoulders. The stone solidifies. I move again. Thomas is closer now. You should rest. I'm fine. Your hands are shaking. I look down. He's right. The tremor is slight but visible. I flex my fingers, and the shaking worsens for a moment, then steadies. 62 meters, I say. I've done 8, and you'll collapse before you finish 20. Then I'll finish 20 and collapse. Thomas doesn't argue. He just stands there, close enough now that I can hear him breathing, and pulls a water skin from his belt. He sets it on the ground between us without a word. Then he walks away. I stare at the water skin for 3 seconds. Then I pick it up and drink half of it in 4 swallows. The water helps. The burning in my arms doesn't fade, but it stops spreading. I cap the skin, set it down, and keep moving. 14 meters, 18, 22. The ache becomes pain. Real pain, sharp and specific, like my bones are grinding against each other every time I activate the foundation. My vision starts to blur at the edges. I blink it away and press my palms to the stone. The system responds slower this time. The reinforcement takes 6 seconds instead of 3. When I pull away, there's blood on the wall. I look at my hands. The skin across both palms has split, thin cracks radiating from the center like I've been gripping something too hard for too long. The blood is bright and fresh. It doesn't hurt yet. Shock, probably. I wipe my hands on my trousers and keep going. 30 meters. The shout comes again from above, closer this time. They're testing the east wall. Archers to position. I hear boots on stone, voices layering over each other. Someone's running. I don't look up. I press my hands to the next section and the pain finally hits. White hot and immediate. The foundation activates anyway. The stone solidifies. I pull away and my palms leave red prints on the gray surface. Thomas is back. He grabs my wrist before I can move to the next section. Stop. I'm not done. You're bleeding through your hands. I know. Then stop. I pull my wrist free. 62 meters. I've done 30. If I stop now, the middle section stays weak. If the middle section stays weak, the whole wall folds when they hit it hard enough. 32 more meters. Then I stop. Thomas stares at me. His face is unreadable. Then he lets go and steps back. You're going to die doing this. I already died once. I turn back to the wall. Didn't take. He doesn't laugh. He just watches. 34 meters. 38. 40. The pain is constant now. A steady burn that doesn't spike anymore because there's nowhere left to spike to. My hands are slick with blood. Every time I press them to the stone, I have to wipe them first or the foundation won't activate cleanly. The system doesn't care if I'm bleeding. It just cares about contact. At 46 meters, my knees buckle. I catch myself against the wall with my forearm, breath coming fast and shallow. The world tilts sideways for a moment, then steadies. I push off and stand upright. 16 meters left. I can see the North Tower from here. Thomas is 10 feet away, hands hovering like he's ready to catch me if I fall. I don't fall. 50 meters? 54. The activation time is up to 9 seconds now. The reinforcement is weaker too. I can feel it in the feedback, the way the stone resists slightly before it shifts. I'm running out of whatever fuel the system burns. Energy, stamina, life force. I don't know what to call it, but I know it's finite and I'm nearly empty. 58 meters. My vision grays out completely for 2 seconds. When it clears, I'm on one knee. Thomas is beside me, one hand on my shoulder. He doesn't say anything. He just waits. I stand. 4 meters left. The stone under my hands feels like fire. The foundation activates so slowly, I think it's failed. But then the shift happens and the section solidifies. 3 meters. I move. 2 meters. I move. 1 meter. I press my palms to the final section and the system doesn't respond. I push harder. Nothing. I close my eyes and reach deeper, past the pain, past the exhaustion, into whatever part of me the foundation is burning, and I pull. The stone shifts. The reinforcement completes. I collapse. Thomas catches me before I hit the ground. He lowers me slowly, propping me against the wall I just finished. My hands are ruined. The skin is shredded, blood pooling in my palms, and I can see bone through the deepest cracks. It should hurt more than it does. Maybe I'm too empty to feel it properly. Done, I manage. Thomas looks up at the wall. His expression is strange, reverent almost. 62 meters. Yeah, in 4 hours? I didn't realize it had been that long. The sky is lighter now. Dawn, maybe. Or close to it. I try to flex my fingers and they don't respond. That's probably bad. Footsteps approach. Heavy. Deliberate. I don't have to look to know it's Ryun. He stops 5 feet away and stares down at me. Then he looks at the wall. He walks the length of it slowly, one hand trailing along the stone. When he reaches the end, he pulls a knife from his belt and drags the edge across the surface. The blade screeches and sparks but doesn't leave a mark. He turns back to me. The entire southern gate section. Yes, sir. In one night. Yes, sir. You're bleeding. Yes, sir. Ryan sheathes the knife. He crouches in front of me, eye level now, and his voice drops low enough that only I can hear it. The king is coming tomorrow. He's inspecting the fortifications. He'll walk this wall. I don't respond. I'm too tired to understand why that matters. F rank, Ryun continues. Support class. No combat ability. No offensive value. That's what the records say. He tilts his head slightly. But you just turned 62 meters of failing stone into something my best blade can't scratch. In 4 hours. Alone. He stands. The king will see this, he says. And when he asks who did it, I'm going to tell him. He looks at Thomas. Get him to the medical tent. Clean the wounds. Bandage them properly. He looks back at me. Tomorrow, you stand beside me when the king inspects. You don't speak unless spoken to. You don't correct anyone. You just stand there and let him see what F rank built. He walks away. Thomas helps me to my feet. My legs barely hold. He slings my arm over his shoulder and starts walking, slow and steady, bearing most of my weight without comment. We're halfway to the medical tent when he finally speaks. Why did you do it? Do what? All of it. You could have stopped at 20 meters? 30. Ryun would have been satisfied. You didn't have to finish. About the wall and the cracks and the way structures fail when you leave the middle weak. About doing things correctly even when no one's watching. About the scaffold that killed me and the report that didn't matter. Yes, I did, I say. Thomas doesn't respond. But his grip on my shoulder tightens slightly, and he doesn't let go. The medical tent smells like herbs and copper. The priest, same one from before, with the orb, takes one look at my hands and goes pale. He starts cleaning the wounds with water that stings worse than the original injury. Thomas stands in the corner, watching silently. The priest works in silence for 2 full minutes. Then, quietly, this will scar. I know. You won't be able to use your hands properly for a week, maybe 2. I know. He wraps the bandages tight, layer over layer, until my hands are white and stiff. When he finishes, he doesn't move. He just stares at the bandages like they're a problem he's trying to solve. The wall, he says finally. They're saying you reinforced the entire southern section. Alone. Yes. With an F-rank ability. Yes. He looks up at me. His eyes are sharp, searching. That shouldn't be possible. I don't answer. The priest's mouth tightens. He glances at Thomas, then back at me. You're registered as F-rank. Support class. Material awakening. Minimal combat utility. Minimal strategic value. He leans closer. But what you did tonight isn't minimal. It's not even standard. It's... The tent flap opens. Ryun steps inside. The priest goes silent immediately, straightening like a soldier caught slouching. Ryun looks at my hands, then at the priest. Is he functional? For standing, yes. For manual labor, no. Not for at least... Good. He'll be on the wall tomorrow at noon. Make sure he doesn't bleed through the bandages. Ryun leaves. The priest stares after him, then turns back to me. His expression has shifted. There's something in it now that wasn't there before. Fear, maybe. Or suspicion. You should rest, he says quietly. Thomas helps me back to the barracks. The other workers stare as we pass, but no one speaks. He lowers me onto my cot and steps back. The king, he says, when he sees what you did. When Ryun tells him. He pauses. It's going to change things. I know. I'm not sure you do. Thomas crosses his arms. F-rank doesn't rebuild walls in a single night. F-rank doesn't turn stone into something that can't be cut. The system doesn't make mistakes like that. His eyes narrow. So either the system is wrong, or you are. I meet his gaze. Which do you think? He doesn't answer. He just turns and walks away, and the question hangs in the air long after he's gone. I lie back on the cot and stare at the ceiling. My hands throb in time with my heartbeat. The bandages are already seeping red at the edges. Tomorrow, the king comes. Tomorrow I stand on the wall I rebuilt and let him see what I am. F-rank, support class, no combat value. The lie is already unraveling, and I haven't even spoken yet. The king arrives at exactly noon, just as Ryun said he would. I'm standing on the battlements when the procession enters through the main gate. 20 mounted guards in polished plate, 4 banner carriers, and a single rider at the center who doesn't wear a crown, but doesn't need to. King Aldrich is older than I expected, maybe 50. His hair is iron gray and his shoulders are still broad, but there's a tightness around his eyes that suggests too many nights spent reading casualty reports. Ryun descends to meet him. I stay where I am, hands wrapped in fresh bandages that the priest applied this morning with a look that said he wanted to ask questions he didn't have permission to voice. The bloodstains from yesterday have seeped through in places. I kept my hands behind my back during formation so no one would see. The king dismounts. He speaks to Ryun briefly, too quietly for me to hear, then turns toward the southern gate, toward the section I rebuilt. They walk the length of it slowly. The king runs his hand along the stone the same way Ryun did, testing the surface. He stops at a section where my bloody handprint is still faintly visible, darker than the surrounding stone. He stares at it for 5 seconds. Then he says something to Ryun. Ryun points up at me. The king looks. I don't move. I don't salute. I just stand there and meet his eyes across 30 feet of open air, and for a moment I think he's going to call me down. Instead, he nods once, sharp and deliberate, then turns back to Ryun and keeps walking. They're still inspecting when General Ryun approaches from the east tower. Not the general. The general. The one whose name gets spoken with capital letters, whose tactical manual is required reading in every military academy across Valdris. The man who held the northern border against the Ashenfell invasion for 6 straight months without losing a single city. He's taller than I expected. Broader, too. His armor doesn't gleam like the king's guard. It's dented and scorched in places. Functional rather than decorative. He walks like someone who's spent more time in a war camp than a palace. Ryun, my Ryun, the captain, goes stiff when he sees him. Even the king straightens slightly. General Ryun stops beside the wall I reinforced and places one gauntleted hand against it. He doesn't test it gently. He strikes it once, hard, with the pommel of his sword. The impact echoes across the courtyard. The stone doesn't crack. He turns to the captain. Whose work? Ryun gestures toward me. Conscript laborer. F-rank support. Material awakening. The general's eyes find me. They're cold, evaluating. He looks at me the way I used to look at blueprint errors. Something that doesn't add up. Something that needs correction. Bring him down. Ryun Sas is the captain. Nods at me. I descend the stairs, each step sending fresh pain through my bandaged palms where they grip the railing. When I reach the courtyard, I stop 3 paces from the general and wait. He looks me over, takes in the bandages, the bloodstains, the way I'm holding my weight slightly off-center because my legs are still shaking from yesterday. His expression doesn't change. You reinforced 62 meters of wall in 4 hours. Yes, sir. Alone, yes, sir. With an F-rank ability. I hesitate. The truth is complicated. The lie is simple. Yes, sir. The general's eyes narrow. Show me. I blink. Sir? Your ability. Show me how it works. I look at the captain. He nods. I turn back to the wall, unwrap one bandage enough to expose my ruined palm and press it against the stone. The pain is immediate and blinding. I push through it and reach for the foundation. Nothing happens. I push harder. The system doesn't respond. I'm too empty, too drained. The well I pulled from yesterday is still dry. I can't, I say quietly. Not yet. I used everything yesterday. The general stares at me. How long until you recover? I don't know. 2 days. Maybe 3. And then you can do this again. Yes, sir. He turns to the king. Your Majesty. With respect, this changes the defensive calculus significantly. King Aldrich frowns. One laborer with a support skill? One laborer who can reinforce fortifications faster than a full team of mages and doesn't require mana crystals to function. The general looks back at me. If he can replicate this across the eastern wall, we could hold against twice the force we're currently projected to face. The king considers that. Then he looks at the captain. You're certain he's F rank? The registration orb confirmed it, Your Majesty. Then the system is flawed. The general's voice is flat. Certain. No F rank support can output this level of structural reinforcement. He's been misclassified. The priest from the medical tent is standing near the gate. He steps forward hesitantly. General, if I may, the orb doesn't measure output, it measures inherent potential. It's possible his ability has... I don't care about possible. The general cuts him off without looking at him. I care about useful. He turns to me. Can you reinforce the eastern wall when you recover? I think about the eastern wall, about the cracks I saw there during my first day, the water damage spreading through the foundation, the way the entire structure leans slightly inward like it's already giving up. I think about doing yesterday again, and again, and again. Yes, sir. The general almost smiles. Almost. Good. You're reassigned. Effective immediately. You report directly to me. Your sole task is fortification or reinforcement. Nothing else? The captain's jaw tightens. He doesn't argue. King Aldrich looks less certain. General Ryun, I respect your tactical judgment, but we're discussing a conscript laborer with no training and an F-rank classification. Placing him under your direct command is efficient, Your Majesty. The general's tone doesn't invite debate. We're 3 weeks from the next surge. Every meter of wall he reinforces is one less breach point we have to defend with bodies. He looks at me again. Support skills don't win wars. You're wasting our time. The words land like a hammer. I don't react. I don't let my expression shift. But something inside me goes very still. Support skills don't win wars. I heard the same thing in my past life. Different words. Same meaning. Your job is to make sure the building doesn't fall. Let the architects take credit. Let the project managers get promoted. Your support. You're invisible. You're wasted time unless you're preventing a disaster. No one will thank you for stopping. I died proving that wrong. The general is still talking. The eastern wall. The northern gatehouse. The tower foundations. I want structural assessments on all of them. When you've recovered, you start on whichever section is weakest. Understood? Yes, sir. He turns and walks away. The king follows, still looking uncertain. The captain watches them go, then looks at me. You just became the most valuable F rank in the kingdom, he says quietly. I hope you understand what that means. I do. It means I'm a tool now. A useful one. One they'll use until I break. The priest approaches after the procession leaves. He's carrying a leather case. I need to rewrap your hands. I let him. He works in silence, unwinding the old bandages and cleaning the wounds with stinging antiseptic. The skin is raw and inflamed, healing slower than it should. When he wraps the fresh bandages, his hands are shaking slightly. The general doesn't see people, he says quietly. He sees assets, functions. You just became a function. I know. And you're fine with that? I look at the wall, at the section I rebuilt, at the handprint still visible in the stone. No, I say, but I will be. The priest finishes the bandages and steps back. He looks like he wants to say something else. He doesn't. I'm walking back toward the barracks when I see her. She's standing near the architect's scaffold on the eastern side, studying a section of wall with a notebook in one hand and a measuring cord in the other. Her hair is dark and pulled back in a braid. She's wearing a work tunic that's covered in stone dust, and her boots are scuffed enough to suggest she's spent more time on scaffolding than in offices. She glances up as I pass. Her eyes catch on my bandages, then on my face. She frowns. You're the one who reinforced the southern gate? I stop. Yes. 62 meters in 4 hours. Yes. She looks at my hands again. And you destroyed yourself doing it. I don't answer. She closes her notebook and steps closer. I'm Alira, Royal Architect's daughter. I've been surveying the eastern wall for 2 weeks. She tilts her head slightly. The degradation pattern doesn't match normal wear. The damage is too uniform, too deliberate. That stops me cold. What? Someone weakened it. On purpose, years ago, probably. It's been failing slowly ever since. Her eyes are sharp. Certain. You saw it too. Didn't you? I did. I just didn't have words for it yet. Why would someone weaken their own wall? I ask. I don't know. Elira's expression darkens. But whoever did it knew exactly where to strike to make it look like age instead of sabotage. She looks at me. Can you fix it? Yes. Even knowing someone might have wanted it to fail? I think about that, about the wall and the cracks, and the way the general looked at me like I was a tool he'd just discovered, about support skills and wasted time, and the words that cut deeper than they should have. Especially then, I say. Elira studies me for a long moment. Then she nods once and turns back to her survey work. I walk away. That night, alone in the barracks while the other laborers sleep, I unwrap my hands and look at the scars forming across my palms. They're deep, permanent, the kind of mark that doesn't fade. Support skills don't win wars. General Ryun said it like a fact, like a law of nature. He's wrong. I'm going to rebuild every wall in this kingdom. I'm going to turn every weak point into something unbreakable. I'm going to make myself so valuable they can't ignore me, can't dismiss me, can't call me wasted time. And when I'm done, when the walls hold and the kingdom stands and the war is won without the body count they were planning for, I'm going to stand in front of General Ryun and watch him understand exactly how wrong he was. I rewrap my hands. Tomorrow, I start on the eastern wall. 3 days later, my hands have healed enough to work. The eastern wall is worse up close than it looked from a distance. I'm standing at the base of a 40-meter section that leans inward by almost 15 centimeters, studying the way the mortar has crumbled in vertical lines too straight to be natural. Elira was right. This wasn't age. Someone cut precise channels into the foundation decades ago and let water do the rest. Thomas is beside me, running his hand along the damage. I helped build this section 23 years ago. It was solid then. Someone made sure it wouldn't stay that way. He doesn't argue, just nods and steps back. I unwrap my hands and press both palms against the stone. The pain is still there, but manageable now. I reach for the foundation and feel the system wake up inside me like a second heartbeat. The stone is tired, hollowed out. I push deeper and find the pattern of damage. The channels cut into the load-bearing sections, the deliberate weakening that spread through capillary action over decades. I don't just awaken the stone. I rebuild it from the inside out, feeding structural memory back into the foundation until the wall remembers what it was before someone tried to kill it slowly. The transformation takes 6 hours. When I step back, the inward lean is gone, and the surface has fused into a single continuous piece with no visible seams. I drove iron reinforcement stakes into the ground every 3 meters and bonded them directly into the foundation, so the whole section moves as one unit now. Thomas stares. That shouldn't be possible with material awakening. It's not just awakening anymore. He looks at me. What else is it? I don't have an answer yet. The system hasn't given me new terminology. It just keeps letting me do more. The next morning, a runner brings me to the northern gatehouse. General Ryun is waiting there with 2 of his officers and a structural engineer who looks like he hasn't slept in days. The gatehouse arch is cracked along the keystone. Not badly, just enough that it'll fail catastrophically during the next siege if anything heavy strikes it. The engineer has 3 plans spread across a table. All of them involve dismantling the arch completely and rebuilding it over the course of 6 weeks. Ryun looks at me. Faster. 2 days, I say. Maybe less. The engineer's face darkens. You can't reinforce a failing keystone without removing the load first. The entire structure will collapse. Not if I awaken the foundation before I touch the keystone. That's not how structural engineering works. I look at Ryun. Do you want it done right or done fast? His expression doesn't change. Both. I start that afternoon. The keystone is the most dangerous part. The single piece of stone holding the entire arch in compression. If it fails while I'm working, 20 tons of granite come down on top of me. I can't remove the load. I can't shore it up with scaffolding. I have to awaken every stone in the arch simultaneously and convince them to hold together while I rebuild the keystone from the inside. It takes me 11 hours of continuous contact. My hands start bleeding again halfway through. I don't stop. I reach past material awakening into something deeper, something the system still hasn't named, and I make the arch remember that it was built to stand for centuries. When I finally step back, the crack is gone. The keystone is a single fused piece bonded to the arch stones on either side. The whole structure has compressed tighter, redistributing load more efficiently than the original design. The engineer tests it with a hammer, then with a battering ram, then with a team of soldiers pushing against it with siege equipment. It doesn't move. He looks at me like I just broke a fundamental law of physics. What rank did you say you were? F. That's not possible. Ryun dismisses him before he can argue further. He walks the length of the gatehouse slowly, inspecting every surface. When he returns, his eyes are colder than before. You're ahead of schedule. The refugee quarters foundations are next. Those aren't military structures. No. But if they collapse during a raid, the civilians flood into the garrison district and clog our defensive formations. He steps closer. You'll reinforce every building in the quarter. Prioritize structural integrity over aesthetics. You have 1 week. He walks away before I can respond. The refugee quarter smells like desperation and wet stone. 43 buildings packed into 6 blocks, most of them sagging under their own weight, all of them filled with families who have nowhere else to go. I start with the worst one, a 3-story tenement that's leaning so badly the second floor is propped up with timber supports that are rotting through. Alira finds me there on the second day. She's carrying rolled plans under one arm and a leather toolkit that looks older than she is. She stops in the doorway and watches me work for a full minute before speaking. My father died defending the southern watchtower. I don't turn around. My hands are pressed against a support beam that's been reinforced so many times, it's more patched than original wood. I'm sorry, he was an architect, not a soldier. But when the tower started collapsing during a raid, he went back in to shore up the foundation so the people inside could evacuate. Her voice is steady, controlled. The tower fell anyway. 23 people died, including him. I finish awakening the beam and step back. It's fused now, petrified into something that won't rot or burn. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to rebuild it. I turn. She's holding out the rolled plans. I have the original blueprints. I know where the weak points were. I know why it failed. She meets my eyes. And I think you can make it strong enough that it never fails again. I take the plans. We start 3 days later. The watchtower foundation is still there, buried under rubble and scorched stone. Alira has marked every structural flaw in red ink. The undersized footings, the poor load distribution, the wooden supports used where there should have been stone. I don't rebuild her father's tower. I build a new one using the foundation he died trying to save. It takes 2 days. I awaken the remaining stonework and extend it upward in a helical pattern that distributes weight down through the foundation in a spiral instead of straight columns. The walls are half again as thick as the original design. The observation platform can hold 8 soldiers in full armor instead of 3. When I finish, Alira climbs to the top and stands where her father died. She doesn't say anything, just looks out over the kingdom for a long time. When she descends, she kisses me. Brief, deliberate. Her lips taste like stone dust and salt. Thank you, she says quietly. Then she walks away. That night, the system updates. I'm alone in the barracks when the notification burns across my vision. Material Awakening Rank E. New skill unlocked. Structural resonance. I don't know what structural resonance means yet. The system doesn't explain. I just feel it there, waiting under my consciousness like a second skill I haven't learned to use. I'm still testing it when the alarm bell rings. The southern wall is breached, not the section I reinforced. The section 200 meters west, the part I haven't reached yet. The monsters came through in a concentrated rush and punched a 12-meter gap before the garrison could respond. 53 soldiers die in the first 5 minutes. The civilian evacuation is chaos. By the time I reach the wall, it's over. The breach is sealed with rubble and bodies. General Ryun is standing in the gap, surrounded by corpses, his armor dark with blood that isn't his. He sees me. His expression is carved from stone. You were supposed to reinforce this section 3 days ago. You ordered me to prioritize the refugee quarter. I ordered you to secure the defenses. The refugee quarter isn't a defensive structure. You told me civilians clogging the garrison was a tactical problem. Not if they're dead because you were playing builder instead of doing your job. He steps closer. His voice drops. 53 soldiers. Because you wasted time on a monument to a dead architect. The words land like a physical blow. I want you off fortifications, Ryun continues. Effective immediately. Report to the quartermaster. You're being reassigned to weapon enhancement. No. His eyes narrow. That wasn't a request. I don't enhance weapons. I build walls. That's my value. Your value is what I say it is. Then you're wrong about value. For 3 seconds, I think he's going to strike me. His hand moves toward his sword. Then he stops, turns, walks toward the king's pavilion without another word. 10 minutes later, I'm standing in front of King Aldrich while Ryun presents his case. The king listens. He looks tired, older than he did a week ago. General Ryun's tactical concerns are valid, he says finally. The next surge is 16 days away. We need every defensive advantage available. If weapon enhancement can improve our combat effectiveness, it can't. I don't let him finish. Not the way fortification can. Enhanced weapons kill faster. Enhanced walls keep people alive longer. You're asking me to trade prevention for lethality. I'm asking you to follow orders, Ryun says coldly. You're asking me to waste time on a solution that doesn't address the problem. I look at the king. You have 200 soldiers who can enhance weapons. You have 1 person who can rebuild walls faster than your enemies can break them. If you reassign me, you lose the only advantage you have that they don't expect. The king looks at Ryun. Ryun's jaw is tight. Your Majesty. With respect. This is a command decision, and I'm making it. King Aldrich's voice is firm. Certain. General Ryun's tactical judgment is sound. Conscript Dae-ho will be reassigned to weapon enhancement. Effective immediately. I feel something crack inside me. Not break, just fracture. Ryun almost smiles. I work through the night anyway. Not on weapons. On the refugee quarter. I awaken every building I can reach, pushing structural resonance into foundations that have been failing for decades. I don't know what the skill does yet. I just use it. The buildings respond. They seal from the inside, walls thickening, and windows reinforcing into narrow slits that can be shuttered from within. By dawn, I've converted 41 homes into fortified shelters. The next raid hits 30 hours later. Smaller than the last one. A probing force testing the southern defenses. They break through in 2 places. The garrison holds. Civilian casualties are projected at 23 based on previous patterns. Actual civilian casualties, 0. Every family in the refugee quarters sealed their homes when the alarm rang. The monsters couldn't get in, couldn't break the walls, couldn't reach the people inside. By noon, the entire kingdom knows. By evening, they have a name for me. The Wall Saint. Ryun stops speaking to me entirely. He doesn't rescind the reassignment order. He just stops acknowledging my existence. When I pass him in the courtyard, his eyes go through me like I'm not there, but I see the way his hand tightens on his sword when people say the name. I see the way his officers hesitate before repeating his orders now, glancing toward the refugee quarter like they're measuring something he can't. I see the moment he understands I've become a threat he can't kill with a sword. And I see the exact moment he decides to try anyway. The attack comes 3 days later. Not at the walls, not at the gates, at me. I'm in the mason's yard inspecting a new batch of limestone when the first arrow punches through the air beside my head. It doesn't miss by accident. It's meant to freeze me in place. The second one hits the ground at my feet. I look up. Ryun stands on the outer parapet with 6 of his finest archers. All of them have arrows nocked. All of them aimed at the dirt around me, not at my body. Not yet. He wants me to run, wants me to prove I'm a coward in front of the masons, the apprentices, everyone watching from the refugee quarter windows. Wants the Wall Saint to show his real spine when steel gets close. I don't move. His voice carries across the yard. You've made walls. Let's see if you can break them. The outer training yard gate opens. 20 men in full combat gear march through. Veterans. Ryun's personal unit. The ones who've survived 100 raids. The ones who don't flinch at blood. They're not holding practice swords. Thomas steps in front of me. His hands are empty. He's 60 years old and his knees creak when he walks, but he puts his body between mine and Ryun's soldiers anyway. This isn't a legal challenge. It's a field assessment. Ryun doesn't look at him. His eyes stay locked on me. The king wanted to know if his new master builder can survive outside his refugee quarter. I'm simply testing his qualifications. The soldiers spread into a half circle. No one's running. No one's calling for the king's guard. Because technically Ryun hasn't broken any rule yet. He hasn't ordered them to kill me, just to test me, but I can see it in their stances. The moment I activate my skill, the moment I touch stone or try to reshape anything defensively, he'll call it proof I was fortifying a position for rebellion, that I was building weapons inside the capital. And then the arrows won't miss. Elira's voice cuts through from the left. If you kill him, you lose the only person who's saved more lives than you've taken. She's standing on the steps of the architect's hall. No weapon, no guards. Just her and that spine of forged iron she's never bothered hiding. Ryun finally looks away from me. Then he should prove he's worth those lives. One of the soldiers steps forward. A man I've seen before. Captain Oren. He led the charge during the last raid and lost 3 men because they pushed past the safe zones I'd marked. He's never forgiven me for being right. He draws his sword. Defend yourself or don't. Either way, we're coming forward. My pulse hammers in my throat. I've never been in a fight, not in this life, not in my old one. I built things. Calculated loads. Solved problems with math and material science, not muscle. But I look at Thomas in front of me. At Elira on the steps, at the masons behind me who stopped working but haven't run. And I realize Ryun's not trying to kill me. He's trying to make me irrelevant. If I fight and lose, I'm weak. If I don't fight, I'm a coward. If I use my skill to defend myself, I'm a threat to the kingdom. Every option ends with the Wall Saint bleeding out in the dirt or locked in a cell. Every option except one. I step around Thomas. I don't activate my skill. I don't touch the stone beneath my feet. I walk forward until I'm 10 feet from Oren and his raised sword. I won't fight you. His jaw tightens. Then you'll die. Maybe. I look past him to Ryun. But you'll have to explain to the king why his master builder is dead without a weapon in his hand. You'll have to explain it to the people in the refugee quarter who watched you execute the man who saved their children. You'll have to explain it to every mason and apprentice who's seen what I can do and knows you killed me because you're afraid of it. Ryun's expression doesn't shift, but his hand moves, just slightly, a signal. Oren takes another step forward. The sword comes up. Thomas grabs my shoulder and yanks me backward. You stupid boy! The blade comes down and stops. Not because Oren hesitated, because the ground beneath him surged upward in a controlled ramp that threw his balance forward and turned his killing stroke into a stumbling recovery. He catches himself, boots scraping stone, and whips around. The entire yard is shifting, subtle, controlled. Every flagstone within 30 feet of me has risen or sunk by 3 inches, creating a terrain grid that turns flat ground into a calculated maze of unstable footing. I didn't activate my skill. Elira did. She's on her knees at the base of the steps, both palms flat on the stone. Her face is white with effort. Her skill isn't construction, it's architectural resonance. She can sense weight distribution, stress points, weak points in any structure, but she's using it backward, pushing her awareness into the stones until they react to her intent, reshaping the yard 1 inch at a time. It's not enough to stop them, but it's enough to slow them. Oren recovers and lunges again. This time, the stone doesn't shift. This time, I have to move. I throw myself sideways. The blade cuts air where my ribs were. I hit the ground hard, shoulder screaming, and a roll. My hand slaps stone, and I feel it. Every flagstone, every brick, every support beam within 100 feet. The entire yard lights up in my mind like a blueprint made of living material, and I understand why Elira did what she did. She gave me a weapon. I don't reshape the ground. I don't build walls. I do something Ryun won't see coming. I make the stones scream. It's a technique I discovered 2 weeks ago and haven't told anyone about. When I awaken stone, I can make it vibrate at specific frequencies. Mostly I use it to test for internal cracks, but if I push harder, if I sync every stone in a grid to the same resonance, the entire yard shrieks. It's not loud, it's subaudible, a frequency that doesn't hit the ears but punches straight into the inner ear, into balance, into the part of the brain that knows which way is up. Every soldier staggers. Oren drops to one knee, sword clattering. 2 men fall outright, hands over their ears, even though the sound isn't coming from outside. Ryun grabs the parapet edge to stay upright. His archers can't draw, can't aim. I stop the resonance. The yard goes silent. Oren is on his hands and knees, gasping. Blood runs from his nose. Not a lot, just enough to show I could have pushed harder. I stand. My legs shake. My vision swims. That technique drains me faster than anything else I've tried, and I held it for less than 10 seconds. But it worked. Ryun stares at me from the wall. For the first time since I arrived in this kingdom, I see genuine uncertainty in his face. You think that makes you strong? I don't answer. He gestures. The soldiers pull back, dragging Oren with them. They don't retreat, just reset, waiting. Elira gets to her feet. She's shaking. Thomas moves beside me, breathing hard. And then the horn sounds. 3 short blasts. The raid alarm. Everyone freezes. That pattern means one thing. Breach. Ryun's head snaps toward the western wall. He's moving before the 3rd blast finishes, already shouting orders. His soldiers forget about me entirely and sprint for the armory. I run for the wall. Thomas tries to grab me. You can't. If it's breached, people die. I don't stop. Don't look back. Elira runs beside me. Where? Western Gate. That's the only place the alarm originates, from that direction. We round the corner into the main avenue and I see it immediately. The gate didn't fall. The wall didn't crack. They went under it. There's a sinkhole 20 feet wide directly in front of the gate. The street has collapsed into a tunnel system that wasn't there yesterday. And pouring out of it, Bracken. Not the small ones. The siege variants. 8 feet tall. Armor-plated. Built to tear through stone and metal. There are 6 of them already through, and I can hear more coming. Ryun's forces are still 30 seconds away. The civilians are already scattering. And then, I see him. Thomas's grandson. Ren, 10 years old, frozen in the middle of the street, staring at the nearest Bracken as it turns toward him. I don't think. I sprint into the open, slap both hands on the cobblestones, and awaken everything in a 15-foot radius around the boy. The stones erupt upward into a dome. Not a wall. A shelter. Curved. Interlocking. No gaps. The Bracken slams into it at full speed. The dome holds. I pour everything I have into keeping it stable. The creature hits it again. A crack spiders across the surface. I can't hold this. Ryan's voice barks orders behind me. His soldiers hit the Bracken from the side, dragging its attention away. 2 more emerge from the tunnel. Then 3 more. The dome is draining me. I can feel my reserves bottoming out. The awakened stone wants to collapse back into inert material, and I'm forcing it to stay active through sheer willpower. Elira's beside me. Let me help. Get him out. I don't look at her. Can't. If I lose focus for a second, the dome falls. She runs to the structure, finds the seam I left, and pulls Ren through. The boy is crying. She drags him toward the nearest building. I let the dome collapse. The stones fall inward, harmless, and I stagger back. My vision doubles. I've never burned through my energy this fast. A Vraken sees me, changes trajectory mid-stride. I try to awaken the ground again. Nothing happens. I'm empty. It closes the distance in 3 seconds. Thomas hits it from the side with a pickaxe. The tool bounces off its armor plating, but it's enough to make the creature turn. Thomas swings again. The Vraken backhands him. He flies 6 feet and hits the ground in a crumpled heap. He doesn't get up. I'm screaming. I don't realize it until I hear my own voice. I'm on my feet, running toward him, and the Vraken is turning back to me, and I have nothing left. Ryun's sword takes it through the side of the neck. The general rips the blade free, and the creature drops. He doesn't look at me, just moves to the next target. I fall beside Thomas. His chest is moving. Shallow. Wrong. Blood runs from his mouth. I try to lift him. He makes a sound that stops me cold. Ren? His voice is barely there. Safe. Elira has him. He exhales. Something in his chest rattles. His hand finds mine and squeezes once, then stops. I'm still holding him when the last Vraken falls. Still kneeling in the street when Ryun's soldiers seal the tunnel with rubble and chain. Still there when Elira comes back and puts her hand on my shoulder and doesn't say anything because there's nothing to say. Thomas died buying me 3 seconds, and I was too empty to save him. Ryun stands over the sealed tunnel. His sword is still drawn, still dripping. He looks at the collapsed street, at his soldiers pulling the Vraken corpses into a pile, at me kneeling beside the old man's body. This is what your walls bought us. My head lifts. He gestures at the sinkhole. They adapted, went under, and people died anyway. I stand. My legs barely hold me. The tunnel wasn't natural. Doesn't matter. They're inside the kingdom now, under us, and your walls won't stop that. Something clicks. The way the tunnel was positioned, directly at the gate. Too precise, too targeted. Someone dug that tunnel from inside. Ryun's expression doesn't change. Careful what you accuse people of, Builder. I'm not accusing. I'm telling you what happened. Vraken don't use tools. They don't dig strategic tunnels. Someone made that path for them. Elira's voice is quiet beside me. He's right. That collapse pattern isn't natural. It was triggered. Ryun finally looks at me. Really looks. And for the first time, I see something other than contempt. I see fear. Not of me. Of what I'm saying. Because if I'm right, it means the enemy isn't just outside the walls. It's already here. And his entire strategy, every raid response, every patrol route, every defense doctrine is useless. He sheathes his sword. The king will hear about this. He walks away. I kneel again beside Thomas. Elira stays with me. Neither of us speaks. By the time the sun sets, I've made a decision. If something inside the kingdom is helping the Vraken breach our defenses, then I'm not just building walls anymore, I'm hunting. I spend 3 days mapping the kingdom's entire defensive infrastructure. Every gate, every patrol route, every section of wall reinforced over the last decade. Elira brings me architectural records her father kept, blueprints of the original fortifications before Ryun's renovations. Thomas walks me through 15 years of raid patterns, pointing out breaches that never made sense. The pattern emerges like a stain spreading across parchment. Every major breach in the last 2 years happened at points Ryun personally oversaw. Not weaknesses in my work, weaknesses in his. But it's worse than negligence. The collapse points are too precise, too coordinated with raid timing. Someone with access to patrol schedules and structural plans has been creating deliberate vulnerabilities. I take my findings to the king. Ryun is already there. The throne room is smaller than I expected. Stone walls lined with battle standards and a single chair of iron and oak. King Aldrin is younger than his reputation suggests, maybe 40, with the kind of stillness that comes from making decisions that end lives. Ryun stands to his left. His armor is polished. His expression is calm. He speaks before I can. Your Majesty, I've reviewed the Masons' concerns. They have merit. I stop walking. Aldrin leans forward. Explain. Ryun doesn't look at me. The collapse patterns suggest internal sabotage. Someone with knowledge of our defenses has been aiding the Vraken. I've compiled a list of personnel with necessary access. He places a scroll on the armrest. 3 names. All members of the construction teams that reported directly to the F-rank Mason. My blood goes cold. Aldrin unfurls the scroll. Thomas of the Northern Quarter, Elira, daughter of the late royal architect, and Dae-ho himself. Ryun finally meets my eyes. Support personnel. The only people who could manipulate structural integrity without raising suspicion. I don't move, don't speak, because it's brilliant. He's not denying the sabotage. He's confirming it and redirecting blame onto the only people who could prove him wrong. Aldrin's gaze shifts to me. What do you say to this? I could argue. Present my own evidence. Point out that Ryun's renovations align perfectly with every breach. But he's a general with 15 years of loyal service and a reputation built on protecting this kingdom. I'm an F-rank builder who's been here 3 months. So I do something else. I walk to the center of the room and kneel. Your Majesty, grant me one request. Aldrin says nothing. Let me rebuild the eastern wall, the section that collapsed last week. Give me 7 days and full authority over the construction. If another breach happens there during that time, execute me yourself. Ryan's jaw tightens. You're offering to prove your innocence by doing exactly what a saboteur would want. Unsupervised access to critical infrastructure. Then, station your men around the perimeter. Watch every stone I place. If I'm guilty, you'll catch me. If I'm not, the wall will hold. Aldrin stands. The room goes silent. 7 days. General Ryun will oversee security. If the wall fails, you hang. All 3 of you. He gestures. Guards move toward me. You'll work under constant supervision. No private meetings. No unapproved materials. Prove your loyalty or prove your guilt. I bow. Thank you, Your Majesty. Ryun doesn't smile, but I see the satisfaction in his eyes as I'm escorted out. He thinks he's won. He thinks I can't build a sabotage-proof wall while his soldiers watch my every move. He's wrong. The construction site becomes a cage. 30 of Ryun's men form a perimeter. Every stone I requisition is inspected. Every conversation I have is overheard. Thomas and Elira are kept in separate quarters under guard. I'm alone, exactly where I need to be, because Ryun doesn't understand what an F-rank structural awakening actually does. He thinks I just shape stone, make walls solid, basic support magic. He's never asked what happens when I awaken a structure's foundation, the underlying logic that holds it together. I don't just make walls stronger, I make them remember. I start with the collapsed section. My hands press against rubble that still radiates the echo of what destroyed it. Every stone holds a record. Pressure points, fracture patterns, the exact angle of force that brought it down. I awaken the memory. The debris shows me everything. The collapse wasn't caused by siege equipment. It was triggered from inside. A support beam deliberately weakened, then snapped under coordinated external pressure. The beam is marked with Ryun's personal seal. I don't announce this. I just start building. The new wall goes up in 4 days. I design it differently this time. Not just thicker, but smarter. Interlocking stones that redistribute force. Hidden channels that absorb impact. Structural joints that compress under pressure instead of shattering. And one more thing, I awaken the wall itself into a permanent record. Every stone will remember what touches it. Any attempt to weaken it from inside will leave a signature. Ryun visits on the 5th day. He walks the perimeter with his captains, inspecting my work, looking for flaws, finding none. He stops in front of me. Impressive speed. I'm motivated. The Vraken have been quiet. No raids since you started. Maybe they're waiting. His eyes narrow. Or maybe their inside contact has been neutralized. He's baiting me, trying to get me to accuse him in front of witnesses. I keep placing stones. On the 7th night, the raid comes. 300 Vraken at dawn, exactly as the scouts predicted. They hit the eastern wall in a coordinated assault. Ladders, siege hooks, battering constructs formed from twisted bone and shadow. Ryun leads the defense from the wall's top. His soldiers form shield lines. Archers rain down fire. I'm not on the wall. I'm in the foundation chamber beneath it, hands pressed against the central pillar. The Vraken aren't the real threat. I feel it the moment it happens. A deliberate fracture attempt in the wall's base, triggered from inside the chamber through a hidden access tunnel. Someone trying to collapse the wall from beneath while the Vraken provide cover. The wall's awakened memory captures everything. I trace the fracture back through the stone to its source. The tunnel opens behind me. A figure emerges in engineer's clothing, holding a pry bar inscribed with force amplification runes. Not one of Ryun's soldiers, one of Ryun's personal aides, a man I've seen in the throne room. He freezes when he sees me. Then he runs. I don't chase him. I awaken the tunnel itself. Stone flows like water, sealing the passage behind him, redirecting him upward into the main fortress, into the throne room, where the king is waiting. The battle ends an hour later. The wall holds, not a single crack. By midday, the king's guards have the aide in chains. Under questioning, he confirms everything. Years of sabotage, coordinated with Vraken scouts, creating deliberate weak points in the kingdom's defenses. And the orders came from someone inside the military command. Aldrin summons us both to the throne room. Ryun stands in full armor, 3 captains flanking him. I'm still covered in stone dust. The aide is brought in. His face is bruised. He doesn't look at Ryun. Aldrin's voice is iron. Who gave you access to the fortifications? The aide's mouth trembles. General Ryun. Ryun doesn't flinch. I gave him access because he was a certified military engineer. If he abused that trust, the fault is his. Then, explain the orders. Aldrin gestures. A guard produces a stack of documents. Work orders signed by Ryun, each one corresponding to a section that later failed. Ryun's expression doesn't change. Those orders were for reinforcement. If they were executed incorrectly, that's a failure of oversight, not intent. He's still deflecting, still armored in plausible deniability, but he's out of room. I step forward. The wall remembers. Ryun looks at me. Every stone I awakened holds a record. I can show you the exact moment the sabotage was triggered, the exact structural signature of the tool used, the exact pressure applied. I meet his eyes, and I can compare it to every fortification you've personally reinforced in the last 5 years. The room goes silent. Ryun's hand moves to his sword hilt, not drawing, just touching. Aldrin's guards shift. The F-rank builder, Ryun says quietly, is accusing me of treason based on magical evidence that can't be verified by anyone but him. It can be verified, I say, by any structural mage above D rank. The records are permanent. Then bring one. I will. Aldrin raises a hand. Enough. He stands, walks down from the throne, stops directly in front of Ryun. You've served this kingdom for 15 years, led us through raids that should have destroyed us, held walls when no one else could. Ryun's shoulders straighten. But you also told me repeatedly that support skills don't win wars. Ryun's eyes flicker. Aldrin gestures at the eastern wall, visible through the throne room's high windows. That wall won a war. Without killing a single enemy, it just refused to fall. He looks back at Ryun. You taught me that strength is the only thing that matters, that builders and masons and engineers are distractions from real defense. His voice drops. You were wrong, and you couldn't admit it, so you made sure the distractions failed. Ryun's hand falls from his sword. His face drains of color. Your Majesty, you're stripped of rank. Effective immediately. You'll be held pending full investigation. Guards move in. Ryun doesn't resist. As they take him past me, I stop them. Ryun looks at me. His eyes are empty. I say it quietly, directly to his face. Support skills don't win wars. You're wasting our time. His mouth opens. No sound comes out. He closes his eyes. The guards take him away. The silence that follows is heavier than stone. Aldrin turns to me. You proved your innocence. You have my gratitude. I didn't do it for gratitude. Then what do you want? I think about Thomas, still recovering from wounds he took defending a kingdom that never valued him. About Elira, whose father spent his life building and died with no honors. About every person I worked with in my past life who made buildings safe and got nothing but a paycheck while others took credit. I want to build something that doesn't need defending. Walls so strong the Vraken stop coming. A kingdom where support isn't a backup plan. It's the foundation. Aldrin studies me for a long moment. Then I'm making you master builder of Valdris, full authority over all fortifications and infrastructure. Report directly to me. He extends his hand. I take it. 3 weeks later, Thomas walks without a cane. The Eastern Wall has become a training ground for new builders. Elira runs the program. Ryun's investigation confirms 2 decades of systematic sabotage, and the kingdom's entire defensive doctrine is being rewritten. I stand on the wall at sunset, watching construction crews reinforce the northern gates using techniques I taught them. Elira joins me. She doesn't say anything, just stands close enough that our shoulders touch. I lost something in that throne room. The belief that being right is enough, that good work speaks for itself. Thomas almost died because I didn't see the danger until it was too late. People I'll never meet were killed by walls that failed because I was too focused on building to notice who was tearing them down. I can't get them back, but I can make sure it doesn't happen again. Elira's hand finds mine. You know, she says, for an F rank, you're kind of terrifying. I smile. I'm a construction engineer. We're all terrifying when you ignore us long enough. The sun drops below the horizon and the walls hold. The fortress is quiet when we return to the keep. The lanterns burn low along the corridor. Elira walks beside me but doesn't speak. Neither do I. There's nothing left to say that wasn't already said in stone and blood. I set my tools down on the table and let the silence settle. A knock at the door breaks it. I open it to find a rider I don't recognize. He wears the deep indigo of the southern border and carries a sealed letter stamped with a crest I've only seen in Elira's books. 3 silver towers enclosed in a circle. The Empire of Therion. For the master builder, he says, and hands it to me. I break the seal. The letter is short, formal, polite in the way powerful people are polite when they're testing you. But it's the second page that makes me stop breathing. A blueprint. Not just any blueprint. The royal fortress of Therion. Walls 300 meters high. 20 reinforced gates. Enchantments layered so thick I can barely trace the foundation lines beneath them. It's a masterpiece. A statement. A fortress that has stood for 600 years without a single breach. At the bottom, written in red ink, a single question. Can you break what we built? I set the letter down. Elira leans over my shoulder. She sees the question, sees the blueprint, and then she's smiling. They want to know what you're capable of. I pick up a pen and unroll the blueprint flat across the table. My hands are steady, my pulse is calm. They asked the wrong question.